Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Press for Truth TV. Today is Thursday, July the 4th, 2013, a day that Americans are celebrating Independence Day today. However, I find it quite laughable considering they are so far from being an independent nation that they once were. You just look back to where this all comes from. It's 1776 when Americans gained their independence from Britain. And gained independence from the tight control, the grip of control from England, and did become an independent nation for quite some time. Actually, right on up to nearly 100 years ago now, on December 23rd in 1913, is when the international financiers, the crime syndicate banking cabal, the banking dynasty known as the Rothschilds, managed to install their system of fractional reserve lending through the Federal Reserve, which was set up in 1913, nearly 100 years ago. And that is the moment when they regained their tight grip of control on the American people and enslaved them under this perpetual debt-based system of fractional reserve lending and paying interest on these loans that were created out of thin air. So ever since then, they have been very, very far from what could be considered independent, and they've been placed back under the control directly from their international financiers, their puppet string pulling overlords, the Rothschild banking family. And for us Canadians here, we don't really have it. We're not that much better off here in Canada. It is a little bit of a unique situation. It's different in the sense that we don't really have a centralized bank per se. Our Bank of Canada was nationalized by William Lyon Mackenzie King, which essentially places the power of the issuance of currency into the hands of the Canadian people. However, despite that fact, it was in the 1970s, around the time when Canada joined the G7 and got onto the global stage of the world's economies, that we began to borrow from these international privately run institutions and began paying interest on these loans and eventually handed off this debt to the Canadian people. So we're far from being an independent nation as well. I mean, it's even written into our charter that the Bank of Canada can print its own money, can even lend upwards of 50% of its own money to the Canadian people at 0% interest. But we don't do that. Our puppet leaders have decided to go the route of globalism, the globalization route, and began borrowing from these privately run institutions and paying interest on these loans. So, we're not that much better off than the Americans in regards to our independence from England, our independence from that kind of control from the Rothschild banking dynasty. I mean, you want to find out if you're truly free and independent, you follow the money. You find out where the funding's coming from, where the money's coming from, if you want to figure out if you're truly independent or not. And as we can see, America is under the tight grip of the Federal Reserve System. And I mean, look at us here in Canada. Who's on our money? Well, the Queen is on our money. That should say a lot to you. In fact, I think it can be argued that none of the Commonwealth nations are truly independent. Perhaps never have been. So this idea of independence from these global superpowers is laughable. They took it over by stealth. They've regained their tight grip of control on the American people, on the Canadian people, and many others all over the world. So, is today a cause for celebration? I don't necessarily think so. But if you truly want to be independent, you truly want to step away from the tight grip of control of the state over your lives, again, it comes down to the money. And one of the most important ways to do that is to get yourself out of debt. When you have multiple credit cards and mortgages and lines of credits and all the other forms of debt that we're all so used to now, this state basically has a tight grip of control around your neck, and they can squeeze at any time. So gaining your own individual sovereignty, your own independence from the government, can be done in a number of steps, and I know it's a lot easier said than done. It's not easy to get out of debt. We're just raised in this society that is led to believe that we need the banks in order to prosper, to have a nice house and a car and a successful business that you can expand over time. But basically, when you're in debt to the banks, you are completely under the tight grip of control, which can be squeezed at just about any time. Another good way to ensure your independence is to grow your own food and figure out ways to be completely self-sustainable. And growing your own food is another great way to do that. So getting out of debt, having a personal garden where you can independently grow your own organic produce is some excellent steps that you can take on the individual level to gain your own independence from the state. Because let's face it, we cannot rely on the government and look to our puppet leaders to make us free. I mean, it is precisely because of our leaders following the directions of the globalist overlords that we're in this situation that we're in the first place. So again, you can't look to the state to solve the problems of the state. All you can do is focus on your own your own independence, your own sovereignty, by again getting out of debt and being self-sustainable. So again, I don't really think there's a cause for celebration today, because the countries of America and Canada have been taken over through stealth and are completely under the direct control of the international banking crime syndicate known as the Rothschild banking dynasty. But again, there are things we can do on an individual basis to kind of counter that, and to maintain our own individual sovereignty and independence from the state. So anyways, guys, just wanted to share my thoughts on that today, considering it's Independence Day in America, and it was just Canada Day here a couple of days ago here in Canada. Once again, folks, get yourself out of debt, grow your own food, and remove yourself from the clutches and the control of the state. Thanks for tuning in once again, guys. I'll see you all right back here tomorrow at pressfortruth.tv. Take care.